Millionaire disguises himself as a customer and hears an employee say something that changes his life. Richard Thompson adjusted his hat and checked if his beige overcoat hid the gold watch he always wore. At 70 years old, the businessman hadn't set foot in any of his 43 high-end clothing stores in 15 years, preferring to manage everything from his penthouse in New York City through reports and video calls. But today would be different. He had received anonymous complaints about customer service at the Fifth Avenue branch and decided to investigate personally, something he had never done in his entire business career. The doorbell chimed softly as he entered the store. The atmosphere was exactly as he had envisioned decades ago: light walls, soft lighting, and clothes organized by color and style. But something was wrong, completely wrong. The blonde saleswoman behind the counter didn't even look up when he walked in. She was scrolling on her phone, completely ignoring his presence. Richard walked over to a rack of suits and pretended to examine them, waiting to be approached. Nothing happened. "Can I help you?" A woman's voice finally addressed him. Richard turned and saw a young brunette, about 25, approaching. She wore a simple yet elegant dress and had a genuine smile on her face. "I'm looking for something special for an important occasion," he replied, keeping his tone casual. "Of course, what kind of event is it?" As the young woman, whose name tag read Melissa, showed him options, Richard observed the store's dynamics. The blonde saleswoman was still on her phone, and two other employees were whispering near the fitting rooms. "Mr. Thompson can choose anything from this section," Melissa said, pointing to the most expensive suits. He nearly revealed himself right then. How did she know his name? Had he been recognized? "Sorry, I think you've mistaken me for someone else," he said, trying to stay calm. Melissa looked confused for a moment, then smiled awkwardly. "Oh, my apologies, it's just... Well, it's a common name, isn't it? My father's name is Richard, too." Richard breathed a sigh of relief. Just a coincidence. He continued pretending to browse while listening to the other employees. That's when he heard something that made his blood run cold. "Is Amanda coming by again today?" one saleswoman asked. "Probably. Poor thing, she's been showing up every week for 6 months now," the other replied. "And Jennifer still won't let us give her any information about the boss?" "Still, she's afraid it's some kind of scam. Imagine if that girl actually reaches the old man and claims to be his daughter just to get money." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Richard pretended to stumble, steadying himself on the rack to keep from falling. The words echoed in his mind like a haunting refrain. A young woman looking for him for 6 months, claiming to be his daughter? "Are you okay?" Melissa asked, concerned. "I'm fine, fine. Just a little dizzy," he murmured, trying to process what he'd just heard. "Would you like some water? I have a bottle here." "No, thank you. Actually, I think I'll look around and come back another day." Richard left the store on shaky legs. He sat on a bench in the square across the street, trying to gather his thoughts. A daughter. He'd never had children. His only serious relationship had been with Rebecca over 30 years ago, but it had ended abruptly when she moved away with her family. Could Rebecca have been pregnant without him knowing? The businessman spent the entire afternoon replaying those final months of their relationship. Rebecca had been acting strange in the last few weeks, nervous, avoiding his kisses. Whenever he tried to talk, she'd brush him off. And then, out of nowhere, the entire family moved to the countryside without any explanation. At the time, Richard had tried to find her. He called relatives, went to the town where they supposedly moved, but he could never locate her. With time, he moved on, focused on his business, and never got seriously involved with anyone again. But what if Rebecca had been pregnant? What if she tried to tell him and he didn't notice the signs? What if this young woman looking for him was really his daughter? The next morning, Richard returned to the store. This time he arrived earlier and positioned himself in a coffee shop across the street where he could observe the activity. He wanted to understand the situation better before making any decisions. At 10 in the morning, he saw a young woman approach the store. She was about 28, with brown hair tied in a simple ponytail and wearing modest but well-kept clothes. She carried a worn leather briefcase and walked with determination, though also with some hesitation. Richard watched as she entered the store. Through the window, he could see her showing something to the saleswomen, probably photos. The employees shook their heads, and the young woman insisted, gesturing. After a few minutes, she left the store with slumped shoulders and red eyes. Richard's heart tightened as he saw her wipe away a tear before walking away. That same afternoon, he returned to the store in disguise again. He needed to find out more about this young woman. He pretended to be interested in a jacket while listening to the conversations. "That girl cried again today," one of the saleswomen commented. "I know. I feel bad for her, but Jennifer was clear. No information about the boss." "Did you see the photos she brought? The man in the picture looks just like the description she gave of her father." "I did. Actually, the man looks a bit like Richard, don't you think?" "Now that you mention it, he does. Same height, same build. But his hair was dark in the photo, and the boss has gray hair now. Of course, the photo must be from about 30 years ago." Richard felt a shiver run down his spine. He really did have dark hair 30 years ago. What if this young woman really was his daughter? That night, he couldn't sleep. He paced around his penthouse, looking at the city lights below, thinking about Rebecca. He remembered her perfume, the way she laughed, how beautiful she looked when the sun touched her face. He also remembered the last time they saw each other, when she seemed to want to say something important, but stayed silent. "Why didn't you tell me, Rebecca?" he murmured into the emptiness. The next day, he decided to hire a private investigator, but then he changed his mind. If this young woman really was his daughter, he wanted to meet her himself without outside interference. Richard began visiting the store in disguise whenever possible, trying to gather more information. He learned the young woman's name was Amanda, that she worked as a seamstress in a small factory in the garment district, and that she always came alone. One afternoon, he discreetly followed her to work. The factory was small, simple, but well organized. Through the window, he could see her sewing skillfully and with focus. There was something about her profile that reminded him intensely of Rebecca. That's when he noticed Melissa, the saleswoman who had helped him on his first visit, leaving the factory and hugging Amanda. They talked for a few minutes on the sidewalk, and Melissa handed Amanda an envelope before saying goodbye. Richard waited for Melissa to leave and followed her to a bus stop. "Excuse me," he said, approaching her. Melissa turned and recognized him immediately. "Hi, you're the customer from the store, right? What a coincidence." "Yes, actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important." Melissa looked at him curiously. "You know the young woman you mentioned in the store? The one looking for the boss?" Melissa's expression changed completely. She tensed up and became defensive. "Did you overhear our conversation?" "I did, and I need to know more about this story. It's very important." "Look, I can't say anything. The manager was very clear about that." "Please, I'm not a journalist or anything like that. I just need to understand this situation." Melissa studied him for a moment, clearly conflicted. "You seem like a good person, but I can't lose my job." "What if I told you I could make sure you don't lose anything? In fact, quite the opposite." "How so?" Richard took a deep breath. It was a risk, but he had to try. "Because I'm the owner of the store." Melissa stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. "You're what?" "I'm Richard Thompson, owner of the Thompson Elegance chain of stores." "That's impossible. The boss never comes to the stores." "That's exactly why I'm here in disguise. I received complaints about the service and came to check it out myself." Melissa still looked skeptical, so Richard pulled out his wallet and showed her some documents. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, you really are the boss." "I am. And now I really need your help. Tell me everything about this young woman who's looking for me." Melissa glanced around nervously before speaking. "Her name is Amanda Miller. She first came into the store 6 months ago, saying she was looking for her father. She has an old photo of him and some information she's gathered over the years." "What kind of information?" "She knows her father's name is Richard Thompson, that he lived in New York City in the 90s and worked in the clothing business. She said her mother's name was Rebecca, and that they moved away from New York when she was a baby." Richard's world stopped. Rebecca. It was really her. Where did she get this information? From her mother. Mrs. Rebecca became very ill a few years ago, and before she passed, she told Amanda the whole truth. She said her father never knew about the pregnancy because her family prevented any contact. Richard felt his legs weaken. He had to lean against a lamppost. Her mother, Rebecca, Yes, she passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. Amanda took care of her all by herself until the end. Tears began to stream down Richard's face. Rebecca was gone, and he had a daughter who had cared for her mother alone, who had been searching for him for months without success. Why won't you give her the information? The manager, Jennifer, is afraid of scammers. She said she's seen cases of people trying to take advantage of wealthy business owners by pretending to be relatives. But do you believe she's telling the truth? Melissa sighed. I do. She's not after anything. In fact, when I offered her anonymous financial help, she refused. She said she just wants to meet her father, nothing else. You offered her money. Me and some of the other girls at the store pooled some money when we found out she was struggling, but she wouldn't take a single penny. Said she didn't want charity from anyone. Richard felt a mix of pride and sorrow. His daughter had dignity, just like Rebecca. Tell me more about her. She's a seamstress, very talented, works at a small garment factory but does beautiful work. Lives alone in a modest apartment on the north side. She's very polite, always thanks us when we help her, even when we can't. And she still comes to the store. Every Thursday, always at the same time. She never gives up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. Richard spent the rest of the night planning how to approach Amanda. He couldn't just show up and say, "I'm your father." He needed a more delicate approach, especially after learning she'd spent years searching for him. The following Thursday, he was at the coffee shop across from the store, watching. Right at 2 in the afternoon, Amanda appeared. This time, Richard managed to observe her more closely. She really did look a lot like Rebecca in her youth. The shape of her face, her walk, even the way she tied her hair. He watched her enter the store and, as always, leave a few minutes later, visibly frustrated. But this time, instead of leaving immediately, she sat on a nearby bench and opened the folder she always carried. Richard stepped out of the coffee shop and approached slowly. He could see she was looking at old photos and documents. In one of the pictures, he recognized himself with Rebecca in a park. They were hugging and smiling at the camera. He remembered that day. They had gone for a picnic, and Rebecca had insisted on taking several photos. "Sorry to bother you," he said, moving closer to the bench. Amanda looked up, quickly putting the photos away. "It's fine. You seem upset. Did something happen?" Amanda studied him for a moment. Richard had slightly altered his disguise, wearing different glasses and a beret instead of a hat. "Actually, it's a long story. I have time if you'd like to talk. Sometimes venting to a stranger helps." Amanda hesitated, but something in Richard's gentle voice made her relax. "I've been searching for someone for a long time. My father. I know he works around here, but I can't find him." "How long have you been looking?" 6 months. I come to this store every week because someone told me he might be the owner, but the employees never give me any information." Richard felt his heart race. "And why do you think he owns the store?" "I have a few clues. His name, his profession, the time he lived in New York City. Everything matches the owner's profile." "And you've never met him?" Amanda lowered her eyes, and Richard saw the pain reflected in her expression. "No. My mother moved away from New York when I was a baby. She never told me about him until she got very sick. It was only before she passed that she gave me these photos and documents. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. She was a wonderful person. Worked so hard to raise me alone, never complained about anything. But before she passed, she made me promise I'd try to find my father." "Why didn't she look for him before?" Amanda sighed deeply. She said her family stopped her. When they found out she was pregnant, Her parents thought it would be better to move away and not tell him anything. My mother was very young back then and ended up agreeing. But she regretted it deeply. She said it was the biggest mistake of her life, that she thought about my father every day and wondered how he was. Richard had to make a tremendous effort not to cry right then and there. Rebecca had thought about him every day. Had she suffered from their separation too? And what do you plan to do when you find him? I just want to meet him, know what he's like if he's a good person. I don't want money or anything material. I just want to have a father. Amanda's voice broke on the last words, and Richard saw a tear roll down her cheek. I'm sure he'd want to meet you too, he said, his voice thick. I don't know. Maybe he has a family now, other children. Maybe I'd just disrupt his life. Or maybe he spent all these years alone wondering about you and your mother. Amanda looked at him surprised. You think so? I think any father would be happy to discover he has a daughter like you. How can you know that? You don't even know me. Sometimes we don't need to know someone long to see their character. You've been coming here for 6 months, every week, searching for your father. That shows determination and love. Those are admirable qualities. Amanda smiled for the first time since Richard had seen her. Thank you. You're very kind. What's your name? Amanda. Amanda Miller. Nice to meet you, Amanda. I'm Richard. The name echoed among them like a silent thunderclap. Amanda's eyes widened. Richard? Yes. Richard Thompson? Richard felt the moment had come. He couldn't keep pretending. Yes, Amanda, I'm Richard Thompson. The owner of the store? Yes. Amanda fell silent for several seconds, processing the information. Then her expression shifted completely, from hope to confusion, from confusion to anger. Were you testing me? She asked, standing abruptly. No, You knew who I was all along and played games with me. Amanda, let me explain. Explain what? That you thought it was funny to watch the daughter you abandoned humiliate herself for 6 months looking for you. I never knew you existed. Liar, she shouted, drawing the attention of passers-by. My mother tried to reach you before she moved away. She never told me anything about a pregnancy, because your family stopped her. They said you wouldn't want anything to do with a pregnant girlfriend. What family? I don't have a family. I've always been alone. Amanda stopped shouting and stared at him, bewildered. What do you mean you don't have a family? I'm an orphan, Amanda. I never had parents or siblings. The family that stopped your mother must have been hers, not mine. That can't be true. It is. And I searched for your mother for months when she disappeared. I could never find her. Amanda sank back onto the bench, visibly shaken. My mother said it was your family who... Your mother might have misunderstood, or someone lied to her. I would never have rejected either of you. But you never tried to find me after she died. I didn't know she had died, or that you existed. If I had, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you. Amanda began to cry. Every certainty she'd held about the past was crumbling. So, it was all just a misunderstanding. It seems so. We lost 30 years because of a lie. We did. But we don't have to lose another day. Amanda looked at him through her tears. You really want to know me? Amanda, you're what was missing in my life. I just didn't know it until today. She threw herself into his arms and the two wept together on that park bench. People passed by, glancing curiously, but neither cared. Dad, Amanda murmured against his chest. My daughter, Richard replied, holding her tight. They stayed like that for several minutes, reclaiming 3 decades of lost embraces. Now, tell me everything about you, Richard said when they finally pulled apart. I don't even know where to start. From the beginning. What was your childhood like? For hours, seated on that bench, Amanda shared her story. Moving to Boston as a baby, her simple but happy childhood, her studies, working to support Rebecca when she fell ill, the battle with cancer, her mother's final moments. Richard listened to every word, swelling with pride and sorrow. Pride for the strong woman his daughter had become, sorrow for all the milestones he'd missed. And you, Dad, What was your life like without us? Richard spoke of years of hard work building his business empire, the loneliness, how he'd never managed to love seriously after Rebecca. You never married? Never. Rebecca was the love of my life. When she vanished, part of me died with her. She never married either, said you were the only man she ever truly loved. They sat in silence, thinking of Rebecca and all the lost chances. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Why were you disguised at the store? Richard smiled sheepishly. I'd gotten complaints about the service and decided to investigate myself. I never imagined I'd discover I had a daughter. So, what was your verdict? I need to have a serious talk with the manager. The employees are demotivated, and apparently my own daughter was mistreated for 6 months. They were just trying to protect me. Protect you from what? From scammers. The manager thought I might be trying to take advantage of you. And you weren't angry? At first, yes. But then I understood their side. You're a very wealthy man. You must have plenty of opportunists trying to get close. Richard was impressed by his daughter's maturity. Amanda, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Are you going through financial difficulties? Amanda hesitated before answering. A little. My mother's treatment drained all our savings, and I'm still paying off some debts, but I don't want you to think I came looking for you because of money. I know that wasn't why, but now that we've found each other, I want to help. Dad, I'd rather earn things on my own. I understand and respect that, but at least let me learn more about your situation so I can support you without hurting your pride. Amanda smiled. You're just like my mum. She always said I was stubborn because I got it from my father. Rebecca knew me well. The sun was setting when they finally stood up from the bench. They exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet the next day. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Can we take it slow? I've dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it's happened, I'm a little scared. Of course, we'll go at your pace. And could you not tell anyone for now? I'm still processing everything. It'll be our secret until you're ready. Amanda hugged him again before saying goodbye. See you tomorrow, Dad. See you tomorrow, my daughter. Richard watched Amanda walk away until she disappeared into the crowd. Then he stood there for a few more minutes, trying to process everything that had happened. In just a few hours, his life had completely changed. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept looking at the photos Amanda had shown him, imagining what his life might have been like if he'd known about Rebecca's pregnancy. He thought of all the moments he'd missed. Her birth, her first steps, her first word, graduations, boyfriends, tears, smiles. But he also felt immense gratitude. Amanda had grown into a wonderful woman even without him. Rebecca had done an exceptional job raising their daughter alone. The next day, they met at a quiet cafe. Amanda seemed more relaxed but still a little shy. How did you sleep? Richard asked. Not much. I kept thinking about everything. Me too. Dad, can I see your home? Of course, whenever you want. Today? Richard smiled. It was the first time she seemed genuinely eager to get to know him better. Let's go right now. Richard's penthouse was luxurious but cold. Amanda looked around curiously, but he noticed she seemed out of place. It's very beautiful, she said politely. But it feels empty. It is empty. It's never been a home, just a place to live. Amanda walked to the living room and saw a photo of Rebecca on the shelf. You kept a picture of Mom all these years. It was the only memory I had of her. Amanda touched the frame tenderly. She looked beautiful in this photo. She always looked beautiful. You know what else? She kept lots of pictures of you too. Said she looked at them when she missed you. Really? Really. In fact, there's one just like this at her place, I mean my place now. I'd love to see where you live. It's very simple compared to this. I don't mind simple, I want to see where my daughter grew up. In Amanda's apartment, Richard felt more at home than in his own penthouse. It was small but cozy, full of photos and memories. It had the warmth his place had always lacked. This was Mom's room, Amanda said, opening a door. I kept everything just as she left it. The room was simple but tidy. On the headboard, several photos of Amanda at different ages, and on the dresser, the pictures Rebecca had saved of Richard. "She really did think of me," he murmured, touching one of the frames. "Every single day. She always said you were a good man, and that if things had been different, you two would have been very happy together. We would have been." Amanda also showed him her sewing projects. Richard was impressed by the quality and creativity of her work. "This is professional. I learned from Mum. She was a seamstress too. Have you ever thought about starting your own business?" "I have, but I don't have the capital for it." "What if—" "Dad," Amanda interrupted him. "Remember, you promised to take it slow." "Sorry, I just get excited seeing your talent." "I know, but I'd rather achieve things at my own pace." Richard respected his daughter's request, but began forming plans in his mind. He wanted to help her in a way that wouldn't hurt her pride. In the weeks that followed, they met several times. Lunches, dinners, walks in the park. Richard was rediscovering the joy of companionship, and Amanda was getting to know the father she'd always dreamed of having. "Dad, can I tell you something?" she said during lunch one day. "Of course." "I was afraid you'd be a bad person." "Why?" "Because Mom always spoke so highly of you, but I kept thinking, if he's so great, why did he never look for me? And now? Now I understand it wasn't your fault, and I see Mom was right. You really are a good person." "You are too, Amanda. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Even without you, huh? Rebecca did an amazing job. She gave you values many parents fail to teach their children." It was during one of these conversations that Richard discovered something troubling. "Amanda, you've seemed tired lately. I've been taking on extra work to pay off Mum's last debts." "What kind of work?" "Sewing at home, weekends, late nights, nothing major." "You're working yourself to the bone." "It's temporary, just a few more months and I'll be free. Let me help." "Dad, it's not a favor. It's a father looking after his daughter. I need to do this on my own." "Why?" "Because I need to prove to myself that I can." Richard understood that pushing would only backfire, but seeing Amanda exhaust herself worried him. That's when he had an idea. "Amanda, can I make you an offer?" "What kind of offer?" "Working with me." "At the stores?" "Yes. I need someone to evaluate product quality and customer service. You understand clothing and have a customer's perspective." "Dad, that would be nepotism." "Only if you weren't qualified, but you are." "I don't know. Think about it. You'd earn a fair wage, work regular hours, and still have time for your personal projects." Amanda fell silent, considering the proposal. "What if people find out I'm your daughter?" "For now, no one would know. You'd just be an outside consultant. Can I think about it?" "Of course." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. 3 days later, Amanda accepted the offer. Richard was overjoyed but tried not to show it too much, not wanting to overwhelm her. "When can I start?" "Whenever you're ready." "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow it is." On her first day, Richard introduced her as Amanda Miller, quality consultant. No one suspected their true relationship. "Your first assignment," he said, "is to evaluate customer service at the Fifth Avenue store." "The same one where I used to look for you?" "The very same." This should be interesting. Amanda arrived at the store as a mystery shopper. She recognized all the employees, but they had no idea about her new role. "Can I help you?" asked Jennifer, the manager who had banned any information about Richard. "I'm looking for something special for an important occasion," said Amanda, repeating the words she had heard Richard say weeks before. The service was terrible. Jennifer ignored her for several minutes. Other employees were on their phones, and the only one who made an effort was Melissa. Amanda observed everything and took mental notes. Later, she prepared a detailed report for Richard. "It's worse than I imagined," he said after reading the report. "Melissa is the only one who does her job properly. The others have no motivation at all. And the manager, she's arrogant and careless. She treats customers who don't seem wealthy poorly, including you when you were looking for me, especially me." Richard decided it was time to make changes at the store. He scheduled a meeting with the entire team for the following week. "Amanda, I want you to be there. As a consultant?" "Exactly." On the day of the meeting, Richard arrived at the store in his usual appearance. Expensive suit, elegant posture, no disguises. The employees grew nervous when they saw him enter. "Good morning, everyone," he said. "I'm Richard Thompson, owner of this chain." Jennifer turned pale. The other employees exchanged uneasy glances. "You must be wondering why I decided to visit after so many years." Complete silence filled the store. "I've received some complaints about the service here. That's why I hired a consultant to evaluate the situation." He pointed to Amanda, who stood beside him dressed formally. "She spent a few weeks observing your work, and the report was far from encouraging." Jennifer tried to explain herself. "Mr. Thompson, I can explain." "Yes, you can. Especially why a customer who was looking for me for 6 months was systematically ignored and mistreated." The silence grew even heavier. "Which customer?" asked Jennifer, pretending not to know. "A young woman named Amanda, who claimed to be my daughter." Melissa looked at Amanda and began to understand the situation. "Mr. Thompson," said Jennifer, "we were just trying to protect you from scammers." "Protect me how? By humiliating someone, ignoring a potential customer, and besides," Richard continued, "you were right about her being my daughter, she really is." All the employees stared at Amanda in shock. Melissa was the first to recover. "So, you two met?" "We did," Amanda confirmed. Despite the efforts to prevent it, Jennifer looked like she wanted to disappear. "Mr. Thompson, I can explain. You can start by explaining why your employees spend their days on their phones instead of helping customers." That's not true, isn't it?" Richard showed Amanda's report. "Everything that happened during our consultant's visits is documented here." Jennifer read the report and turned even paler. "I'd also like to understand why only one employee makes an effort to do her job while the others seem to be here as a favor." Melissa stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, may I speak?" "Of course." "We don't have much incentive to work well. The wages are low, there's no commission, and management doesn't recognize effort." "Is that true, Jennifer?" "Mr. Thompson, I run the store as best I can with the budget I have." "What budget? You never requested additional funds to motivate the employees." "I didn't think it would be approved." "How would you know if you never tried?" Richard turned to the employees. "Does anyone else have something to say?" One of the saleswomen spoke up. "Mr. Thompson, we really need more motivation. Jennifer only criticizes. She never praises us when we do something well." "And do you think that justifies poor customer service?" "It doesn't justify it," said Melissa. "But it explains it." Richard thought for a moment before speaking. "Very well. Here are the changes that will take place. First, all salaries will be adjusted by 30%. Second, there will be a commission system to encourage sales. Third, from now on, our consultant will make regular visits to evaluate customer service." The employees were surprised by the positive changes. "What about management?" one of them asked. Richard looked at Jennifer. "Management will be reassessed. If there isn't significant improvement next month, there will be changes." Jennifer swallowed hard. "Mr. Thompson, I promise things will get better." "I hope so, for your sake and the team's." After the meeting, Richard and Amanda went to lunch together. "How did it feel being introduced as the consultant?" "Strange, but good. For the first time, they listened to me with respect." "You did a great job." "Thank you, but I have a question." "What is it?" "Are you really going to fire Jennifer?" "That depends on her. If she shows she can change, she'll get a chance." "Do you believe in second chances?" "I do. After all, we're both getting our second chance, aren't we?" Amanda smiled. "That's true." In the following weeks, the Fifth Avenue store underwent a complete transformation. The employees were more motivated, customer service improved drastically, and even Jennifer made an effort to change her attitude. Melissa became one of the best salespeople in the company, and Richard decided to promote her to supervisor. "Did you know from the beginning that Amanda was my daughter?" he asked during Melissa's promotion. "I had my suspicions. When you showed up asking about her, I was sure. Why? The way you talked about her. It was the way a concerned father would. And you didn't tell her anything? I thought you two needed to find each other naturally. Thank you for that. You're welcome. You both deserve to be happy. During this time, Richard also began including Amanda in other company activities. She attended meetings, gave input on new products, and helped choose suppliers. Dad, can I suggest something? Anything. How about creating a more affordable clothing line? What do you mean? Your stores are very focused on high-income customers, but there's a huge market of people who want quality at fair prices. That's an interesting idea. Can I develop a few pieces and show you? Of course. Amanda spent the next few nights creating a full collection. When she showed it to Richard, he was impressed. This is brilliant. How did you come up with these ideas? I grew up shopping at popular stores. I know what people look for. And you think this would sell well? I'm sure of it. Richard decided to bet on his daughter's idea. He rented a smaller space and set up an experimental store with Amanda's designs. What should we call the new line? How about Rebecca? Amanda suggested. Richard felt his eyes fill with tears. Perfect. The Rebecca store was an immediate success. The clothes were higher quality than competitors, but still affordable. Within months, Richard had to open 3 more locations. Amanda, you have a natural talent for business. I learned by watching you. You learned by being smart and creative. Dad, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever wish you'd had other children? The question caught Richard off guard. Why do you ask? Because sometimes I wonder if you wanted a big family. Amanda, you're all the family I need. Really? Really. I'd rather have one amazing daughter like you than several children who don't care about me. What if I get married and have kids? Then I'll be the happiest grandfather in the world. Do you want to meet my boyfriend? You have a boyfriend? Richard perked up. Yes. For 2 years. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because we're still getting to know each other, remember? I wanted to be sure you really wanted to be part of my life before introducing anyone else. And now, are you sure? I am. The following weekend, Amanda took Brian to meet Richard. He was a 29-year-old engineer, calm, polite, and visibly in love with Amanda. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Thompson, Brian said, extending his hand. The pleasure is mine. Amanda speaks highly of you. I hope it's all good things. Only good things. During lunch, Richard observed how Brian treated Amanda. He was attentive, respectful, and affectionate. Most importantly, Amanda seemed happy by his side. How long have you known each other? 2 years, Brian replied. We met at a craft fair where Amanda was selling some pieces. And what impressed you most about her? Her dedication. She was there early, organizing everything with care, treating every customer as if they were special. And now I admire her even more, seeing how she cares for you, for Mrs. Rebecca's memory, for her work. She's a special person. Richard fully approved of the relationship. Amanda, can I speak with you privately? Of course, Dad. They stepped out onto the penthouse balcony. He's a good man. You like him. I really do. More importantly, he makes you happy. He does. Then you have my blessing. Thank you, Dad. Your opinion means a lot to me. And his opinion of me. He said you're exactly as I described, a good man who lost too much time away from his daughter, but is doing everything to make up for it. He understands our story. He does, and he supports it. In fact, it was his idea for me to accept working with you. Really, really. He said I shouldn't let pride get in the way of having a father present in my life. I like him even more now. In the following months, Richard, Amanda, and Brian began meeting regularly. The businessman discovered that having a family was far more rewarding than he'd imagined. Dad, Brian wants to talk to you, Amanda said one day. About what? I think it's better if he tells you himself. The next day, Brian arrived at Richard's office. Mr. Thompson, may I speak with you? Of course, have a seat. Brian seemed nervous. It's about Amanda. Did something happen? No, actually, I want to ask for her hand in marriage." Richard fell silent for a few seconds, processing the news. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I love Amanda and want to spend the rest of my life with her." "And does she know?" "She knows I love her, but she doesn't know about the proposal. I wanted to speak with you first." "Why?" "Because I know how important you are to her. It wouldn't make sense to ask without your blessing." Richard was moved by the gesture. "Brian, you have more than my blessing. You have my gratitude for making my daughter happy." "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And you can call me Richard, or father-in-law if you prefer." Brian smiled in relief. "Thank you, Richard. When do you plan to ask?" "On her birthday next month. Do you need help organizing it?" "Actually, I was thinking of keeping it simple, just the two of us. What if we did something special, involving Rebecca's memory?" Brian was immediately intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" Richard and Brian spent the next few weeks planning a surprise for Amanda. They arranged a party at the apartment where she grew up, decorated it with photos of Rebecca, and invited only their closest friends. On her birthday, Amanda found it odd when Brian said they were just having dinner at home. "But it's my birthday," she complained. "Exactly. That's why I want it to be special." When they arrived at the apartment, Amanda found everything decorated and many people waiting. Richard, Melissa, some friends from the garment factory where she worked, and even the building's landlady, who had been like a grandmother to her. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "You did all this for me?" "For you," Richard said, hugging her. The party was unforgettable. Everyone shared stories about Amanda, talked about Rebecca, and celebrated the new family that had formed. At the end of the evening, when only Richard, Amanda, and Brian remained, the young man knelt in the middle of the room. "Amanda, 2 years ago you changed my life. Today, I want to change ours." He pulled a ring from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" Amanda began to cry and looked at Richard. "Dad, I fully support this." "Then yes," she shouted, throwing herself into Brian's arms. Richard watched the scene with a full heart. His daughter was happy, in love, and would be cherished by a good man. "When will the wedding be?" he asked. "We want to marry by the end of the year," Brian replied. "And where?" Amanda and Brian exchanged glances. "Actually, we have a bit of a wild idea," Amanda said. "What is it?" "How about the garden of the first store in the chain, the one you opened when you were young?" Richard was surprised. "Why there?" "Because, in a way, that's where our story began. If you hadn't built this empire, I never would have found you. And besides," Brian added, "it would show that love and work can go hand in hand." "You two are one of a kind," Richard said, hugging the couple. The wedding preparations became a family project. Richard insisted on paying for everything, but Amanda only agreed on the condition that it be simple and elegant. "No extravagance, Dad." "But it's my only daughter's wedding." "Exactly why. I want it to be special, not showy." "What's the difference?" "Special is when everyone has fun and is happy. Showy is when everyone is impressed, but not moved." Richard realized he had much to learn from his daughter about what truly mattered in life. The wedding was set for December, in the garden of the first store Richard had opened 40 years earlier. The place was transformed into a romantic setting, with simple but beautifully arranged flowers and soft lighting. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Amanda said on the morning of the wedding. "Anything. Will you walk me down the aisle?" Richard felt his eyes fill with tears. "It would be an honor. And will you give the father of the bride speech? Are you sure? I might get too emotional." "I'm sure. I want everyone to know how wonderful it is to have you as my father." During the ceremony, Richard was more nervous than Amanda. He wore his best suit and waited at the store's entrance to escort his daughter to the altar. When Amanda appeared wearing the dress she had sewn herself, inspired by one Rebecca had worn in her youth, Richard couldn't hold back his tears. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, Dad. I'm nervous." "Me too." "Why?" "Because I'm giving my daughter to another man. It's hard for any father." "But you like Brian." "I do, very much, but that doesn't make it easier." Amanda smiled and held his arm. "You're not losing me, Dad. You're gaining a son." Richard took a deep breath and smiled. "You're right, shall we do this?" "Let's." The walk down the aisle was emotional. Richard felt he was living a moment that should have happened years earlier, but was worth the wait. When he handed Amanda to Brian, he whispered in his son-in-law's ear, "Take good care of her." "Always," Brian replied. During the ceremony, Richard thought of Rebecca. He imagined how happy she would be to see their daughter marrying a good man, surrounded by people who loved her. When it was time for his speech, he stood up, moved. "Friends, family, thank you all for being here with us today. I'm not great with words, but I need to say a few things about my daughter." He looked at Amanda, seated beside Brian. "Amanda, I missed the first 28 years of your life. I wasn't there when you were born, when you took your first steps, or on your first day of school. I couldn't comfort you when you were sad, or celebrate with you when you were happy." His voice began to falter. "But what amazes me most is that, even without me, you became the most incredible person I know. You're as strong as your mother, but you're also kind and generous. You work hard, but you never forget to care for the people you love. Brian, you're a lucky man, not just because you're marrying the most wonderful woman in the world, but because she chose you. And if she chose you, it's because you deserve it." He raised his glass. "So, let's toast. To the newlyweds, may you be as happy as I am to have you in my life." Everyone applauded and raised their glasses. Amanda stood up and hugged Richard. "Thank you, Dad, for everything. Thank you, my daughter, for finding me." The party went on late into the night, filled with music, dancing, and joy. Richard danced with Amanda for the father-daughter dance, and it was one of the most emotional moments of his life. "Dad, you can dance. Your mother taught me." "Was she a good dancer?" "Very good. You take after her in that too." "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I've always dreamed of this moment, dancing with my father at my wedding. And I never imagined I'd live to see it. Thank you for making it possible. Thank you for accepting me so easily. How could I not? You're the greatest gift life has given me." After the wedding, Amanda and Brian moved into a bigger apartment, but stayed close to Richard. They had dinner together at least twice a week, and the businessman finally learned what it meant to have a real family. The company also thrived under the changes Amanda implemented. The Rebecca line became a national success, and Richard decided to expand the concept to other cities. "Dad, I have news for you," Amanda said during dinner 6 months after the wedding. "Good or bad?" "Very good." "Then out with it." Amanda glanced at Brian, who smiled encouragingly. "You're going to be a grandfather." Richard fell silent for a few seconds, then stood and hugged his daughter tightly. "Really? Really? When?" "In 7 months." "My God, I'm going to be a grandfather." Richard celebrated like a child. He called Melissa, his employees, everyone he knew, sharing the news. "Dad, you're more excited than I am," Amanda laughed. "It's just, I've already missed so much with you. I don't want to miss a single moment with my grandchild." "You won't, I promise." During the pregnancy, Richard became the most devoted grandfather possible. He accompanied Amanda to every doctor's appointment, helped set up the nursery, and even took a first aid course to be prepared. "Dad, you're overdoing it," Amanda said when he showed up with an outrageously expensive stroller. "My grandchild deserves the best. Our child will need love, not expensive things. Then they'll have love and expensive things." Brian found his father-in-law's enthusiasm endearing. "Richard, you're more nervous than Amanda. I just want to get it right this time." "You already are. Just being present is more than many grandfathers do." When Rebecca Thompson Miller was born, yes, they chose the name Rebecca in honor of Amanda's mother, Richard cried more than the parents themselves. "She's perfect," he said, cradling his granddaughter. "She looks just like Grandma Rebecca," Amanda remarked. "And she's got Grandpa Richard's nose," Brian added. Richard gazed at his granddaughter and felt his life was finally complete. He had a wonderful daughter, a son-in-law who respected him, a thriving business, and now a granddaughter to love and protect. "Welcome to the family, Rebecca," he whispered to the baby. "You're going to be so loved." And she was. Richard became the most devoted and affectionate grandfather imaginable. Every day he stopped by Amanda and Brian's house to see his granddaughter. He sang her to sleep, told her stories even though she was just a baby, and already planned all the things they'd do together when she grew up. "Dad, you're spoiling Rebecca too much," said Amanda when she saw he'd bought yet another toy. "Grandparents exist to spoil their grandchildren, but she's only 3 months old." "So what? It's never too early to show love." Amanda laughed at her father's devotion. It was heartwarming to see how he'd changed since they became a family. "You know what else?" Richard said during one of these visits. "What? I'm thinking about retiring." "What do you mean?" "I want to spend more time with you all, with Rebecca." "Dad, you're only 72. "Exactly. I still have plenty of time to enjoy with my family." "What about the company?" "You and Brian can take over. You already know the business better than I do." "Dad, are you serious?" "Very serious. I spent 40 years building a company. Now I want to spend the rest of my life enjoying my family. What if we don't want to take over?" "You do. I can see it in your eyes." And he was right. Amanda and Brian agreed to take over the company, with Richard as a consultant. The transition was smooth and the business continued to thrive under new management. Richard sold the penthouse and bought a house near Amanda and Brian's. He wanted to always be close to family without intruding on their space. "Dad, are you sure about this?" Amanda asked when he told her about the move. "Absolutely sure. That penthouse was cold and empty. I want a place that feels like home." "And what does that home look like to you?" "With a garden for Rebecca to play in when she grows up, a big living room for family gatherings, with pictures of all of us on the walls." "Sounds perfect." Richard's new house became the family's meeting place. Every Sunday, they gathered there for lunch, conversation, and playtime with Rebecca. "Grandpa," Rebecca would say when she started talking, stretching her little arms toward him. "Hi, my princess," Richard would reply, scooping her up. These were the moments he felt happiest, watching his granddaughter grow, talking with his daughter and son-in-law, planning the family's future. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Amanda said during one of these lunches. "Of course." "Do you regret anything?" "I regret not looking harder for your mother back then. If I'd insisted more, maybe we would have discovered the truth sooner. But you didn't know she was pregnant. I knew something was wrong. I should have pursued it." "Dad, don't blame yourself. What matters is we're together now." "That's true. And you know what?" "What?" "If we hadn't gone through all that, maybe we wouldn't appreciate what we have today so much." "How so?" "You grew up strong and independent because you faced hardships. I learned to value family because I spent so much time alone. And now we both know what's important in life. Love. Love. Family. Being present." Rebecca, who was in her grandfather's arms, giggled as if she understood the conversation. "She agrees with us," said Brian. "She's very smart," Richard replied. "She'll be an engineer like her father, or a businesswoman like her mother." "Or a seamstress like Grandma Rebecca," Amanda added. "Or all of the above," said Richard. "She can be whatever she wants." Years passed and the family remained close and happy. Rebecca grew up surrounded by love, hearing stories about the great-grandmother she never met, but whose name she carried with pride. Richard aged gracefully, always present in his daughter and granddaughter's lives. He never felt lonely or empty again. He had purpose, he had love, he had family. One Sunday afternoon, when Rebecca was 5 and running through her grandfather's garden, Amanda approached him. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm great, why?" "You were very quiet, just watching Rebecca play." "I was thinking." "About what?" "About how funny life is. I spent 70 years thinking I was fine alone, that I didn't need anyone. And now? Now I know I was just surviving. Really living is this right here. It's seeing my granddaughter run in the garden. It's talking with my daughter. It's being part of a family. Do you regret the lost time?" "I can't regret what I didn't know existed, but I'm grateful I found out before it was too late." "It would never have been too late, Dad." "How can you be so sure?" Because true love doesn't have an expiration date. If we'd met when I was 40 or 50 or 60, it still would have been special. Richard hugged his daughter. You're as wise as your mother. And you're as loving as she always said you were. Did she really speak well of me? Always. She said you were the kindest man she'd ever known, and that she regretted every day not being honest with you about the pregnancy. I forgive her. I forgive her family too. In the end, everything worked out. It really did. Rebecca ran up to them, interrupting the conversation. Grandpa, Grandpa, look what I found, she said, holding up a flower she'd picked from the garden. How beautiful. Who's it for? For Grandma Rebecca. Mommy said she loved flowers. Richard felt his eyes fill with tears. She would have adored it. Shall we put it by her picture? Yes. The three went inside and placed the flower beside Rebecca's photo in the living room. It was a portrait of her in her youth, smiling, full of life. Grandpa, do you miss Grandma Rebecca? I do, my princess, but aren't you sad? Sometimes I am, but then I look at you and your mum, and I remember Grandma Rebecca lives on through you. How? You have her smile, your mum has her kindness, and I have her memories, so she's never completely gone. Rebecca thought for a moment. So when I grow up and have kids, will Grandma Rebecca be there too? She will. And so will I, even if you can't see me. Promise. I promise. Amanda watched the conversation with a heavy heart. It was beautiful to see the bond between father and granddaughter, but it also reminded her of all the time they'd lost. Dad, can I tell you something I never have? Of course. When I was little, sometimes I'd pretend you were there. At graduations, birthdays, important moments. I'd look into the crowd and imagine you smiling at me. Really? Really? And you know what? You're exactly how I imagined. How so? Loving, present, proud. I pictured you as the kind of father who cheers for his children's successes, who cares, who loves unconditionally. And am I? Exactly that. So your dreams came true? All of them. And a few I didn't even know I had. That night, after Amanda and Rebecca had left, Richard stayed in the living room gazing at Rebecca's photo. He spoke to her as he did every night since discovering Amanda. Rebecca, our daughter is doing well. She's happy, married to a good man, mother to a beautiful girl. You did an amazing job raising her alone. And you know what? I finally understand what true happiness is. It's not money or success. It's having people who care about you and loving them without measure. Thank you for giving me Amanda. Thank you for being strong enough to raise her even when I wasn't there. And thank you for telling her the truth before you left. I promise, I'll take good care of them both. I'll be the father and grandfather you'd want me to be. Richard slept peacefully that night, as he had every night since reuniting with his family. The years passed, and Richard and Amanda's story became well known in the city. People spoke of the businessman who discovered he had a daughter at 70 and how it completely changed his life. Young entrepreneurs sought Richard's advice, and he always said the same thing. Success without family to share it is just loneliness disguised as achievement. The company Thompson Elegance thrived under the management of Amanda and Brian, but with a different philosophy. They created social responsibility programs, provided opportunities for underprivileged youth, and always treated employees like family. You're doing something I never managed to do, Richard told his daughter and son-in-law. What? Turning a business into a community. We learned from you. You learned from me what not to do. The rest you figured out on your own. Rebecca grew up in an environment filled with love and strong values. By the age of 10, she was already helping at the company on weekends, learning about responsibility and teamwork. Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to work with you, she said during a visit to the store. Are you sure? Don't you want to be an astronaut or a doctor? I can be a doctor and work with you too. How so? Taking care of the employees' health. Richard smiled. His granddaughter had the same creativity as Amanda and the practicality of Brian. You'll do whatever makes you happy, my princess. And will you be there to see it? I'll be wherever you need me. On a special afternoon, when Richard turned 80, the family threw a surprise party at the first store he had ever opened. The same place where Amanda and Brian had gotten married, now decorated to celebrate the life of the family patriarch. "Dad, you're 80, but you look 60, Amanda said during the party. "That's the effect of having a happy family. It keeps you young." "Are you happy with your party?" "I'm happy with my life. The party is just a bonus." Rebecca, now 15, gave a heartfelt speech about her grandfather. "My grandpa taught me that it's never too late to start over. That family is the most precious thing we have, and that love can heal any wound. He also taught me that sometimes the best things in life come when we least expect them, and that it's always worth fighting for the ones we love." "Grandpa, thank you for being the best grandpa in the world and for loving Mom so much. Both of you taught me what a real family is." Richard cried throughout his granddaughter's speech. When she finished, he stood to respond. "Rebecca, my dear granddaughter, thank you for those words. Both of you," he looked at Amanda, "are the greatest gift life has given me. I used to think my story ended at 70, that I was just a rich, lonely man waiting for the end. But you showed me my story was just beginning, that the best chapters of my life were still ahead. I learned that money buys comfort but not family, that success without love is empty, and that it's never too late to be truly happy. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. And thank you for helping a lonely old man discover what it means to be loved." The party was beautiful, with music, dancing, and plenty of emotion. Richard danced with Amanda, with Rebecca, and even with Melissa, who had become almost like family over the years. "Mr. Richard," Melissa said during their dance, "do you remember when we first met? How could I forget? You were the only employee who treated me kindly when I was in disguise. I knew you were special. There was something about you that reminded me of Amanda." "How so?" "Your manners, your kindness. Now I know it's because you're family. You played an important part in this story, Melissa. If it weren't for you, Amanda and I might never have found each other. I just did what I thought was right. And you did it well." In the years that followed, Richard became a beloved figure in the community. He participated in social projects, gave talks about entrepreneurship, and always emphasized the importance of family. "What changed in your life after you found your daughter?" people would ask. "Everything," he'd reply. "I realized it doesn't matter what you achieve if you have no one to share it with." Rebecca graduated from high school with the top grades in her class. During the ceremony, she made sure Richard and Amanda came together to watch. "Grandpa, are you proud of me?" "So proud. Your mother and great-grandmother would be too. Do you think they're watching?" "I'm sure they are. Rebecca decided to study medicine, just as she'd said when she was little. She wanted to specialize in geriatrics to care for the elderly." "Why that specialty?" Richard asked. "Because I want to take care of people like you. People who have so much to offer but sometimes feel forgotten. You'll be a wonderful doctor. I'll use everything you taught me about never giving up on dreams." During college, Rebecca stayed close to her grandfather. They talked about everything: studies, boyfriends, plans for the future. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you afraid of getting old?" "I'm not afraid of aging. I'm afraid of not making the most of the time I have left." "And do you think you are?" "Every second, because I have you. What if one day we're not here anymore?" "You'll always be here," he said, touching his chest. "In my heart, in my memories, in the love we've built." When Richard turned 85, Rebecca was in her final year of college, and Amanda had become a nationally respected businesswoman. "Dad, do you have any regrets?" Amanda asked during his birthday. "Just one." "What?" "Not searching harder for your mother back then, but even that taught me something." "What?" "That some mistakes lead us to the right places." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Where are you watching from? If this narrative moved your heart, share your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Richard made the right decisions? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will touch your heart.